Hey family, this is King Carouse, the Black History Buff. Come, let's walk and talk. You know what caught my attention this morning? South Africa just secured a massive 1.5 billion loan from the World Bank. And family, when I see headlines like this, I'm immediately asking, what's the catch? Every day, I go through the news to bring you stories that matter to our community. Today's story is about how South Africa is getting this huge injection of cash to fix their crumbling infrastructure and move towards green energy. But the World Bank has a history of Africa, and it's not exactly a love story. So here's what's happening right now. The World Bank just approved this 1.5 billion loan. That's about 27 billion rand in South African currency, to help the country tackle what they're calling critical infrastructure bottleneck. But let me put these numbers in perspective for you, family. South Africa's rail system is operating at only 25% capacity. Imagine if the bus that takes you to work decided it was going to run 75% slower every single day. That's what we're talking about here. Or think about it this way. If your internet was running at 25% speed, you would be losing your mind right now. I know I would. But that's South Africa's entire freight rail system right now. Their ports are so congested that exports have dropped by 20%. Picture 1 in every 5 shipping container just sitting there going nowhere. And the power outages that they called load shedding cut the country's GDP by 2% and cost 500,000 jobs last year alone. That's like telling 500,000 people, sorry, your job doesn't exist anymore because we can't keep the lights on. President Cyril Ramaphosa and his coalition government are betting this World Bank money will fix decades of what they're calling poor management and corruption. The loan comes with a 16-year repayment plan and a 3-year grace period. Now, before we go any further, family, if you get value from my content, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. It really helps to get these stories out into the algorithm and onto people's feeds. Thank you. If you could do that for me, I would be really grateful. But anyway, I digress. Where I start getting suspicious about this story is that the World Bank and Africa have been dancing this dance for decades, and it usually doesn't end well for ordinary African people. Back in the 1980s and 90s, the World Bank pushed what they called structural adjustment programs right across the continent. Countries like Ghana, Kenya, and Nigeria were told, if you cut your government spending, privatize everything, open your markets to foreign competition, we'll give you loans. The result? Manufacturing sectors collapsed, unemployment skyrocketed, and social services got gutted. It was economic colonialism dressed up as development aid. And here's what I'm thinking. Is this time actually any different, or are we just seeing the same old playbook with better marketing? The World Bank is promising to help create 250,000 jobs by 2027 and increase rail capacity from 25% to 65%. Those are nice numbers, but who's going to get those jobs? Which communities are going to benefit? And more importantly, what happens if South Africa can't meet the loan conditions? And here's what makes me even more skeptical. Earlier on this year, the Trump administration cut 436 million in US aid to South Africa for HIV treatment and prevention. And their finance minister straight up said they don't have the money to cover that shortfall. So South Africa loses 500 million for healthcare, and suddenly the World Bank shows up with 1.5 billion for infrastructure. Come on, family. That timing does not feel like a coincidence to me. You let me know what you think in the comments. And all this is happening while we're watching some fascinating developments right the way across the continent. Take Burkina Faso, for example. Ibrahim Traore's government just kicked out French forces and started questioning all their international agreements. Mali and Niger did similar things. These countries are saying we're done with outside powers dictating our development. Meanwhile, South Africa is signing billion-dollar deals with the World Bank. Now, I'm not saying South Africa should follow Burkina Faso's exact playbook, but the contrast is interesting, isn't it? We're seeing two different approaches to African sovereignty playing out in real time. Some countries are choosing confrontation with international financial institutions. Others, like South Africa, are trying to work within the system whilst maintaining some control. And the question is, which approach actually delivers for ordinary people, the regular folk like you and I? Oh, and whilst I'm talking about ordinary people and regular folk, to make sure that you're staying connected to these stories for us, all of us, make sure you're following Black History Buff 777 on Instagram. That's where I'll share quick updates and analysis throughout the week that don't make it into these longer stories and little tidbits of Black history. Now, here's what the World Bank wants us to focus on: renewable energy transition, job creation, infrastructure modernization. All of these things sound great, but let's dig a little deeper, because the loan includes something called just transition measures, which is £750 million in grants for communities affected by the move away from coal. And that sounds impressive, but here's my question. Who gets to define what just transition means? Is it the World Bank? Is it the South African government? Or is it the actual communities themselves whose lives are being turned upside down? Because when we talk about this green energy push, Europe and North America got rich burning coal and oil for centuries. And now they want Africa to skip that phase and go straight to renewable energy without any of the benefit. It's great for the environment, but economically, I'm going to be real, it just sounds like another way to keep African countries from developing their own industrial capacity. Don't get me wrong, climate change is real and Africa needs clean energy, but I'm always suspicious when the same institutions that helped create the climate crisis suddenly become the experts on how Africans should solve it. So here's what I'm going to be looking out for, family. First, where does this money actually go? Big infrastructure projects have a habit of enriching foreign contractors while ordinary people see very little amounts of the money. Second, what are the real conditions attached to this loan? The World Bank says it's about structural reforms. That's the same language they used during those programs I mentioned previously. And third, how does this affect South Africa's relationship with other international partners? China has been a major infrastructure investor in Africa. Is this World Bank deal partly about reducing Chinese influence? And if so, does that serve African interests, or is Africa just becoming a playing field for great power competition again? If you want to support more analysis like this and help me to keep digging into these stories, please check out the Black History Buff on Patreon. That's where I can share the deeper dives into stories. I've got hundreds of posts over there, and it's where I put all my best work. So there you have it, people. South Africa's 1.5 billion World Bank deal. On the surface, it's about infrastructure and green energy, but underneath, it's the same old questions about power, sovereignty, and whether African countries can truly control their own development. History is made every day, family, and we're watching South Africa try to navigate between independence and international partnership. Whether they can pull it off without falling into old traps, that's the story we all need to keep following. Well, that's your morning walk and talk with me, King Caruso from the Black History Buff podcast. And remember, the best way to support this content is through Black History Buff on Patreon. That's where we can really get real. Okay, people, I'm out. Until next time, stay blessed.